Welcome, everybody. I see we have about 20 participants, and that's excellent. This is the beginning of a sort of 1 month activity that we're describing as a hackathon. And during that, we're going to spend 2 sessions today, thanks to ESIP. And we're going to do an overview of the tools and what we know about air quality materials that are available. And then we're going to spend this afternoon breaking up into 2 or possibly 3 different groups to start working on the capabilities. I'd like to start, that means this afternoon, you're going to spend time discussing what it is you're going to actually construct over the next month. Let me also add my thanks to Kurt Hamill and the ESRI guys for their contribution of the ArcGIS online capabilities for us to use for the next month. Some of you have already been contacted with, if you pre-registered, have been contacted with account information so that you can log on. And somewhere, during one of the talks this morning or during the break, you're going to want to log on to the system so we can make sure that people can get into it this afternoon. Let me think. So let me start by sort of going over the agenda and then the what we're going to talk about. And now the first thing I have to do is figure out, where do I share? No, there it is, the one that says share screen. Yeah, of course. All right. So you should be able to see a window that says ESIP Air Quality Cluster Hackathon, and talks about the 2 sessions, the schedule for that. Very briefly, let me go over the schedule for today. So from this first session from 11 a.m. to 1:30, we're going to do the usual welcome and introductions. We're going to spend 30 minutes with the team leaders and describing the use case, and then self-selection opportunity for each of you to decide which team you want to be on, so that we can make sure you're in the right group. We can, and you can also decline to actually work on the ArcGIS online system, in which case we won't give you an account. But everybody who signs up will have the opportunity to have an account. And then from 12:30 to 1:30, we're going to have a session presented by the ESRI people on the technology that we're going to be using, the ArcGIS online. And so it's kind of a familiarization. And then we'll adjourn at 1:30, and then at 2:30, we'll start the second session, which will be primarily focused on getting into the breakout sessions for doing the initial planning. The objective would be to finish everything by the 26th of August, which is in about 4 weeks, and attend the next air quality cluster telecon and show what we've managed to accomplish during the 4 weeks between this the meeting today and a month from tomorrow for that session. There'll be some prizes. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, but there won't be any Teslas or ride into space with your favorite tech billionaire, but there will be some things that'll be almost as fun and certainly a lot safer. And with that, let me go back to what we're trying to accomplish. So we've spent in the air quality cluster the last year, roughly, developing some definition of what would make the use of air quality data a lot more effective. And this is kind of translated into tools and data. There's a lot of data that's out there. Some of it is usable, some of it's usable for things that you're not interested in, but there's a lot of data available. And so part of what we're hoping to do is help you identify data that you want to use to solve the problem we're going to hack about, and then we'll try and work out how we're going to make that data available inside ArcGIS Online. And we have some tricks up our sleeves collectively as to how to do that. But we'd like to develop a couple of applications, one for each use case at least, that will potentially demonstrate the value of having tools and data available to a user community. And I'll let the two use case people talk about those in a few minutes. Those would be Karen Moe, who's going to talk about, let's see if this shows the use cases. Yes, so we had 3 use cases originally that we've been developing. One of them is for the town, I'm going to work them in the reverse order, for the town of Cheverly, Maryland. And that's an effort to try and understand better the air quality issues in that particular community. The second one is a tool that might help the family of an asthmatic family member understand the risk associated with current air conditions, atmospheric conditions that they may be exposing their family member to for a family activity. And then the last one is with the city of Los Angeles, and how can a local government do a better job of reaching individuals, you know, to convey the kind of air quality information that they're interested in. And the city of Los Angeles has had a number of workshops recently on air quality and the impact on the citizen population. And there's a lot of interest among particularly some of the disadvantaged areas of Los Angeles in finding ways to understand that air quality, track down the sources of problems and that sort of thing. So essentially the agenda, as I said before, this morning's session is going to be some brief introductions, followed by the use case information, and then the self-selection, and then the webinar from 12:30 to 1:30. So what I'd like to do, and I've never figured out how to do this effectively, is go around the list. This is where I'm going to put each of you on the spot and ask you to state your name and tell me what your interest is and what your, and in particular, any background that you may have with air quality data or ArcGIS or other tools or the use case itself. So I'll just start. I'm Mike Little. I've been working for NASA for about 32 years. I currently work in the Code 606 at Goddard, which is a supercomputing center. And I work with both of the supercomputing facilities, the one at Ames, both of NASA's supercomputing facilities, the one at Ames and the one at Goddard. And I have a particular interest in air quality, as I think it is an indicator of climate change that is going to affect us all. And we need to find better tools to understand that situation. So Megan, can I ask you to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Megan Carter. I'm ESIP's community director. I'm here as a tech host today and a supporter of making connections and collaborations. So while I'm not as much vested in air quality, I'm really excited to see what you all have to bring today and to contribute as much as I can.
Great, thanks. Beth Huffer, please.
Hi, everyone. I am Beth Huffer. I have a small technology company called Logica, and I also provide contract support at NASA's Atmospheric Science Data Center. And like Mike, I have a keen interest in air quality because I don't want us all to choke on our own atmosphere. So anyway, thank you all for being here. It's good to see you.
Kurt.
Hey, my name's Kurt Hamill. I'm the account manager at ESRI supporting NASA. Our job is to help NASA in any kind of implementations using ArcGIS. My interest in air quality is really kind of twofold. You know, from a personal standpoint, just like you all, I'm concerned about it. I participate in Purple Air. I have a sensor on my back deck So I'm adding into the Purple Air database about real-time in situ measurements of air quality. But I'm also interested professionally, both the Atmospheric Data Center and GESDISC, the Goddard Earth Sciences Data and Information Systems Services Center. Both of them serve out some wonderful and informative air quality web services, and they use ArcGIS to do that. So I admire their work, and we support it fully, and we're glad to be able to wrap some of that into the hackathon as best we can.
Great, and thanks for your help, Kurt. Kurt's contributed quite a lot over the course of the last month in trying to get ready for this. So the next one I see is Sarah. Do you want to introduce yourself, Sarah? And I'm going to pronounce it wrong, and you guys will just have to get used to my really bad use of names. It's Sarah Lafia, is that right?
Perfect. Yeah, that's right. Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah. I'm a ESIP fellow, and I'm also currently a postdoc at University of Michigan. My background's in geography, and I'm very interested in air quality. I grew up in the LA basin and in the foothills, so I've had many days as a kid of dealing with air quality. And a long time ago, I also interned with the South Coast Air Quality Management District. So that was a very interesting experience working with hands-on with some air quality data. And I'm very excited about this event. Thanks.
Great. The next one is, it looks, I can't exactly, it's Ethan McMahon, that's it. Now I decoded the name on the screen. So Ethan, please introduce yourself.
Hi there, I'm Ethan McMahon. I'm at U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. I didn't catch the cue. We're just supposed to say why we want to be here.
Yes.
The prompt, yes. So yes, I'm interested in air quality issues because they kill in excess of about 7 million people a year. That shouldn't have to happen. And there's also a lot of convergence of trends that make this possible to address. Cheaper sensors, more interested people as citizen scientists, and big data analytics capabilities. So let's figure out how to crack this.
That's great, Ethan, thanks. And thanks for coming. So the next name that I have, and of course it's changing on a regular basis, is, it looks like it's Alexa. Is Alexa Milchetic? Maybe Milcetic?
Hi, yeah, it's Milcetic.
Great.
So my name's Alexa, and I'm interning under Matt Tisdale at the ASDC, and we're basically looking for something to do like our final project on.
Great, thank you. Allison Zhao.
Hi, yeah, I'm Allison. I use they, them pronouns. I'm also interning under Matt and Brian with Alexa. And yeah, we're just here to basically support as we can. I have experience using ArcGIS and using notebooks in Python with ArcGIS also. So definitely looking forward to contributing with that.
Great, thanks. Ben Smith.
Hi, so I'm Ben Smith. I'm an associate with the AIST program at NASA and based out at JPL. We've got a number of technology projects and analytic collaborative frameworks and analytics that include air quality. So I'm very interested to hear more about the session and use cases and how they all come together.
Great, thanks, Ben. And as always, it's great to see you. I love your background, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Likewise. Oh, hey, I got my old background up. Sorry about that.
Benita, if you could introduce yourself, I'd appreciate it.
Hi, I don't know if you guys can see me. I'm trying to turn on my camera.
You're there.
Okay, thank you. Hi, I'm Benita Casey. I'm from GESDISC. We are a data center at NASA Goddard Space. And I actually have quite a bit of experience working with AGOL. And I have previously worked with Kurt as well. And thanks, Kurt, for mentioning about GESDISC. So I actually have developed web applications and story maps using NASA AGOL. And my background is in geography, and I'm particularly interested at looking at the impacts of extreme events, weather and climate events. And I am interested in air quality and this cluster because I really want to see its impact in public health. So happy to join, and thank you all.
Great, welcome. Let's see, the next one down the list, Hai Lan. Could you please introduce yourself?
Yep. Good morning, everyone. Sorry, I do not have a camera on my PC, but I'm a postdoc researcher in the NSF Spatial Temporal Innovation Center at GMU site. So I'm working with my team, working on the air quality data downscaling and retrieval. And Chen Liu and Yan Bu is also in this meeting. We are in the same group. Thanks.
Great, thanks. The next one would be Jean Holm. Sorry, Jean. Can you hear
me?
Hey,
Mike. Good to meet you.
Good to see you.
Hi, I'm Jean Holm. I'm the deputy mayor at the city of Los Angeles, and we're running a project with NASA AIST on predicting what we breathe, which you'll hear about today. Formerly, I was with JPL and NASA for 32 years.
Thanks, Jean. Welcome, and we hope you end up getting something useful out of all this. Jennifer Way, could you introduce yourself, please?
Oh, hi. I think you guys can see me.
Yeah.
So my name is Jennifer Wei. I am the lead scientist at the JASDIS, Gather Earth Science Information and Data Services Center. So I have been, air quality is one of my primary focus. That's the reason I came to this country to learn, because I grew up in Asian mega city, and we suffer a lot of air quality. So I came to this country hoping to learn to resolve this air quality issue. Now, I think my colleagues and Benita earlier mentioned about, we are a data center. We are hoping to help using NASA data to help the the stakeholders to hopefully you can use the NASA data or the information services from JASDIS to help you resolving this air quality issue. That's it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Don Comer, please. Hi, Don. Just introduce yourself.
Good morning. Hi, everyone.
Morning.
Okay. Hi, Dawn Comer with the City of Los Angeles. I'm the Broadband and Digital Inclusion Coordinator, as well as the project manager for the city's Predicting What We Breathe air quality project, where we're looking at using satellite and ground-based data to predict air quality, look at interventions on how we can either help improve policy as well as help improve overall health conditions for residents in the city of Los Angeles, as well as share this information broadly across the world. So we're working with Cal State LA and OpenAQ as partners on this project. And I'm working with Jean Holm, who's also on this call.
Great, thanks. The next one is Kabir, and I'm going to butcher your name, and I apologize, Negrecha.
You got it right. So I'm a research associate at Cal State LA working with Dr. Mohammed Borhamayan. Our interest in this is mainly how we can use machine learning to predict and analyze air quality patterns to warn the groups who are most vulnerable to these issues.
Great, thanks. Lane Graham from ESRI.
Hi, everyone. So I have been supporting NASA and EPA at ESRI for about 3 years, and I work closely with quite a few of you. I have an interest in air quality from a couple of different places, EPA being one of them, but I did a lot of work for my dissertation with participatory GIS, and looking at especially the ways that countries were collecting and disposing of trash. So one of the ways that they did that was by burning it, and the potential implications to local communities that are still developing on the coast in Belize. So I definitely have an interest in working with all of you and supporting you from the ESRI side, and learning about the great innovative ways that you'll tackle some of these problems. So thanks so much for having us, Mike.
Thanks. Lisa Kaiser.
Hi, my name is Lisa Kasser, and I'm a technical writer at the National Snow and Ice Data Center currently. But before that, I was a researcher in atmospheric chemistry and air quality. And so this is like an interesting way for me to kind of still be connected to the old research fields. I'm excited to participate.
That's great. Welcome. Karen, did I have you introduce yourself already, Karen Moe?
No, not yet.
Okay, well, in that case, you're next.
Thank you. So I'm Karen Moe. I retired from NASA. I had the privilege of working with Mike Little for several years on the AIST program. And since retiring about 6 years ago, I have been a citizen scientist evangelist in my town, addressing water quality and now air quality. And interestingly enough, we have the phenomena of the fires in the West polluting the air that is coming to the East. And so I'm actually experiencing that impact. And so I have a very deep connection for figuring out how we can best use this information to protect public health. Thanks.
Great, thanks. Matt Tisdale.
Hi, sorry, my connection was there. Matt Tisdale from NASA's Atmospheric Science Data Center. And so have quite a few data sets that we're hoping to make available. We're using ArcGIS technology for a lot of those, trying to reduce the burden of entry for scientists to access and use our data products. So hopefully we'll be able to get some of those used by the community here, or get some feedback on how some of those services work or improvements that we can make. So look forward to the discussion.
That's great. Thanks for jumping in, and hopefully you'll get something useful that may help you out of this experience. And I'm going to apologize in advance. Kian Liu from GMU.
Hi, I'm Qian Liu. I'm a PhD student from STC Center of George Mason University. I'm currently focusing on the estimation and downscaling of air pollution data to provide a better accuracy of the air pollution for scientists in the climate and atmosphere domain, as well as the public health domain. Yeah, thank you.
Great, thanks and welcome. And thanks for the work you're about to put into this. Ryan Benfleth. Hopefully I've got it at least close enough. You know what I know who
I
you
agree.
are.
That's passing grade. He's close enough. It's pronounced Bonfleth. But I appreciate it. Everybody, my name is Ryan Bonfleth. I'm the ESRI account manager for the US EPA. I've been in and around the US EPA for quite some time as a contractor, as a federal employee out of EPA Region 8, and most recently here as account manager. My time in Region 8, I spent a lot of work with various groups around air quality, mapping air quality, non-attainment areas, et cetera. And my interest is kind of twofold. In my current role, I assist with EPA Air Now and the product, the data sets, et cetera. But just personally, I live in the West where we're experiencing fires. I'm currently visiting family in Missoula, Montana. We have fires to the north, south, east, and west. And the smoke has been a bit of a daily issue, and making decisions on how we sort of recreate or how much time we spend outside is of importance. So looking forward to participating in this with all of you, and excited to see what we can do. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Steve Young.
Hey, good to see everyone, and thanks, Mike. So I'm Steve Young. I'm retired from EPA after about 32 years there, and I currently am affiliated with Innovate Incorporated, which is doing a lot of GIS stuff, has a lot of relationships with ESRI, supports EPA, and the USGS Aeros Data Center, if you know that operation in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I've been interested in air quality for decades, and especially the interactions between air quality and human health concerns. So this is really exciting. And yeah, it's nice to see Gene and Ethan. These are colleagues from back in the day. Hey, Gene. I also wanted to tell a little anecdote. I think it was about 12 years ago at ESIP, when a sort of new participant, Aaron Robinson, had just shown up, and they did a Funding Friday project on harvesting tweets for fire data that essentially, so this is like 2009-ish, right? But it successfully demonstrated that you could get some pretty interesting, very rapid turnaround data about new fires breaking out through crowdsourcing. So that was kind of cool. And I also just want to mention real quickly, I've been doing some story maps stuff recently, and you know, very excited with that capability for trying to tell a story, you know, that has a geographic component. Also, I'm kind of a weather weenie, so it looks like we're light on NOAA oriented people from what I can tell, but because I'm very interested in weather, I might be able to help some with some ideas about NOAA sources to augment the all of the NASA resources that are clearly well represented. So thanks.
That's great. Thank you very much. Look forward to your contribution. This is an exciting opportunity. So Yen Pui, I apologize, I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but hopefully you know that it's you I'm pointing at. Yen, we can see your screen, but we can't hear you. Your mic is unmuted, but we're still not hearing anything. Okay, we may have to come back to Yen. Okay, Yvonne Den.
Hi, I'm Yvonne. I'm with the ESRI team. I guess later today, Lane and I are going to tag team this webinar to show you some cool AGOL products. But I just have like a pretty general quality, maybe more in like a environmental justice lens. But I'm just super excited to be here and see how you all, I want to see all your products developed for this hackathon.
It's great, thanks. So I think looking at my list, I've covered everybody, but if there's anybody that I have not called on to introduce yourself, please first don't take offense. I'm old and not very good at this anymore. But if you'd please identify yourselves and introduce yourself. Okay, Yen, do you want to try again to say a few words?
Hi, are you guys able to hear me now?
Yeah, that's great, thanks.
Okay, yes, really sorry about that. I'm not really sure why my mic wasn't working. But hi, my name is Yen. I'm currently an NSF-RU fellow for the summer, which is where I learned to first become familiar with ArcGIS. I'm not too familiar or have really experience with air quality or air quality projects. So I really hope to become more familiar with that through this meeting. And I really look forward to interacting with everyone as well. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. So I think that's everybody. I'll give anybody that I didn't call on one last chance to identify yourselves. Okay, so with that, let's see. Let me share the screen again, just briefly. So you should see the agenda again. So we're going to move to the next step, which is for the team leaders and the use case introductions. And we'll do the City of Los Angeles first. So Jean, you can queue yourself up, and then we'll do Chevrolet. And since Ethan and I haven't really had a chance to communicate, I don't know whether I don't want to put him on the spot, but if you want to lead that activity for the asthma use case, I'll let you know, or you let me know right at the end of the first two talks, and we'll let you sort of introduce that idea, and then we'll work out how we're going to address that. So give you some time to think about that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jean, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen. But that, I don't know if Jean has anything to
I do.
project. Oh, excellent. Okay.
Is that coming through?
Yes, it is. Thanks.
Great. So I just want to do a quick orientation of the project that we've been working on and the challenge that we're facing that I think would be really great for folks to work on. So the project that we're doing is an AIST, which is a NASA Earth Science funded project. It's particularly focused around using machine learning to combine both satellite data sets and ground data sets to try to predict air quality in about the 10-day out. So from today through 10 days out. And doing this with particulate matter, ozone, NOx, and a few other constituents as well. We have a few different partners. One of our students from Cal State LA is on the line today. They are our particular research partner. Here at the City of Los Angeles, we have Dawn, who you met, myself, Irene Berga, who is our air quality specialist, Aaron Gross is our chief resilience officer, and then OpenAQ is a partner as well. And they bring together a lot of, I heard a couple of shout outs to EPA now. They bring together a lot of the EPA data and other data together in standardized ways around air quality. We have a website if you want more information about this. We'll give you a brief overview today and also an email address for the team. So I know that several of you mentioned you grew up in Los Angeles. I am a third generation Angelino and a poster child for this project. I have extraordinarily severe asthma and grew up in the 60s in LA when things looked like this picture on the left. And through a variety of policies and changes and mistakes and good ideas, we've arrived to something that is much more breathable today, but still is insidiously destructive to a lot of health issues. As you all know, more than 4 million deaths occur each year that we can tie to air pollution in the world. But the health impacts are much, much greater than that. And what's particularly alarming for anyone who's been following anything related to health in the last year and a half is that COVID patients, even after recovery, are highly affected by particulate matter and poor air quality. And with almost 200 million people in the world who've contracted COVID, and that number is growing, unfortunately, astronomically now, it's a particular issue. And part of that is also the fact that we have what's called long haul COVID. So some people just don't get better. And so air quality and our ability to better manage it, understand it, and act upon the outcomes of the data that we have is just a growing, increasingly important issue for everybody, not just people who live in Shanghai or Los Angeles or areas of high air quality and air pollution, but we also need to think about it more broadly. So we have air quality data, obviously. I heard somebody's mentioned that they'd worked at AQMD, which is the South Coast Air Quality Management District, which is also a partner on this project. They get great data. We also have EPA data, NASA satellite data. There's data all over the place. That data, though, has particularly been focused on, measuring what is happening at that moment. What we're trying to do is also give people information that will help them better decide. So if I want to go out this weekend somewhere, I may not want to go to the beach if I know that the air quality at the beach is going to be particularly bad, and I may choose instead to go maybe on a hike in the mountains because the air quality will be better there. If I know in advance, because I have such severe asthma, it will give me a better chance to to be healthy all this weekend and to enjoy the activities that I'm trying to do. And if my healthcare provider, who's very proactive actually, if my healthcare provider has that information, they may want to make some recommendations as well. So we're working on really how to present that data in ways that is very actionable. So our overall project is looking at the accessibility and use of space data. We're using machine learning and a variety of data science activities on this. Some of you talked about citizen science or neighborhood science. We're particularly engaged with our community around that. And we're holding a workshop later this month with our Pacoima Beautiful and some of our other community groups that we've been passing out purple air sensors to. We have the ability to check out SafeCast air quality sensors from the library as well. So we have partnerships with both. And part of that is because the way in which we deploy sensors around the city is not equitable. So this is no disrespect to anybody who's been putting out and doing the great work of air quality gathering. NASA satellites fly over the city all the time. They gather large swaths of data. And yet when we're as a city trying to figure out how to act, or as we as individuals are trying to figure out how to act, we are acting at a very hyper-local level. Like, am I in this block or am I going 10 blocks away? So we combine the NASA satellite data with our ground data in order to find those hyper-local air quality measurements, and then to predict what those hyper-local air quality measurements will be in the future. The challenge is that we don't have equitable distribution of those sensors. And so this brings up the issue of environmental justice, which I know many of you are aware of, but I'll just recap it since I'm kicking this off. So areas of environmental justice are where we have not paid attention to certain communities, often communities in poverty, communities of color, where people are suffering because of a lack of appropriate government attention and investment in resources. Or unfortunately, as some things have happened in the past, either intentional or unintentional interventions that have been harmful. So in Los Angeles, when we created our freeway system, we plowed through neighborhoods that were in poorer neighborhoods because there was less, well, I didn't make the decision. So we plowed through the poorer neighborhoods probably because there was less resistance. And as a result, those neighborhoods are now at ground zero for a lot of pollution and particulate matter from freeways and the large amount of traffic we have in Los Angeles. So we have to think differently about how we want to not just help people understand the data we have, but how we want to gather that data in more equitable ways. So the goal here is to really improve the health outcomes for folks in Los Angeles. We call ourselves Angelinos. Really looking at some of those inequalities and trying to give people the power to act upon information. Now, you'll see some of the data that we get back, and you'll see that it's not particularly actionable. It's super cool and very interesting. But the way in which we have it, and we're gathering it, and we're working with machine learning on the large data sets, is good, but you'll see where there's a really amazing opportunity for us to work together over the next month. So this is some of the kind of normal things that we see when we try to do predictions around air quality, right? We see variations over time, but it's actually an extremely complex issue. Many of you know this. Again, I'm just going to kind of put some of this together. So this is just looking at particulate matter 2.5. But when we really start to look at why there are peaks and valleys, part of what we're trying to see is that, so this is just looking at the last year, we have on the 4th of July, we have a large amount of smoke from fireworks. They're illegal, it doesn't matter. We have a lot of fireworks. There were 4,000 complaints registered with the city for illegal fireworks just this 4th of July. So we have that. We have a decrease you can see on the left-hand side over here related to our safer at home order when we asked people to stay at home. And so that was a decrease in traffic, but you can see that that did not persist and it went back up. In fact, if you look, you can see some of these are going to pre-pandemic levels. So we have all of this, and then we have wildfires. We're actually, as many of you know, California is in the midst of a particularly horrendous, and in Oregon too, are in the midst of a particularly horrendous wildfire season that started right now. I think there's 80 or 90 wildfires active today. And so this all is part of the the thing that affects air quality. So it's not just if we make a change at the city that may affect some of this, but it's not going to affect all of it. So one of the things about this project is that we work with a group called the C40. Mayor Garcetti, the mayor of Los Angeles, chairs that group. It's over 100 cities globally that are working on issues around climate action, and they have an air quality group that we are working with. So part of the point of this project is to share the data, the algorithms, and the information from what we're doing and what we're learning, including hopefully what we're doing over this hackathon with those cities around the world in a training model so that we can help cities from Freetown, Sierra Leone, to London, to Shanghai, to Cape Town, South Africa, be able to use the NASA and ESA data in a way that's helpful to them as well. These are just showing you some of our prediction models, which you can see are actually in pretty good sense. The orange line is our prediction, and the blue lines are the actual ground truth data. So our predictive models with our current machine learning algorithms are actually quite good. So this is one of the things that we're trying to push out. And you'll see where we do currently offer real-time air quality data, but we want to offer this predictive data too. For those of you who would like to geek out on this, and I know that Steve Young and a few others will, the deep learning models that we're using are actually a combination of temporal and spatial models. We looked at something more simple, but it wasn't as accurate. And so this lets us look at both a neural network model and a long short-term model, memory model that helps us to combine the satellite data with the hyperlocal ground data in ways that are actually much better for predicting, not just in the very short term, but over the next 10 days. So we actually extract, and I'll shout out to ESRI, who is a huge partner for the city of Los Angeles and for much of this work. We end up pulling information out from images, from maps, and putting it together in ways that make it so that we can give people more actionable data. So here you can see that we're actually over the near term in the 2 days, we're getting about a 93% accuracy on prediction, which is actually pretty good, and 80% in the 10 days, and we're continuing to expand and work on that. And then these sensor locations that you're seeing are actually AQMD sensors, which I'll give you the link to all those data sets in a moment. And so these sensor locations, you can see kind of varies a little bit. And part of that, and let me give you a quick geography lesson in my last 2 minutes, is that Los Angeles is sometimes called the Los Angeles Basin. So we have the ocean on one side and then a ring of mountains on the other side, pretty much. So we're kind of ringed in, which means that when things happen in the basin in the greater Los Angeles and its surrounding areas, which is about 12 million people, then the pollution and the particulates and the smoke from the wildfires and the fireworks gets trapped. So even though we have onshore breezes coming from the ocean, that just blows it up against the mountains and it kind of stays into this hazy area. So our geography is working against us. The city of Los Angeles is 4 million. Our greater area has about 12 million. We are also the largest manufacturing location anywhere in the United States. People don't realize that, but we are. And the Port of Los Angeles brings in 40% of all imports to the United States, and it's the largest port in the Western Hemisphere. Each ship that comes into that port produces as much pollution as 167,000 cars. So we are the poster child for all the challenges that can happen with air quality. And of course, an increasing amount of climate change and wildfires and smoke related to that. So here's the core of the challenge that we're facing for the next 30 days that we'd love for you to participate with us. We really want to make sure that we're providing air quality data for today and the near future, so really kind of over that 10-day period, in ways that patients and healthcare providers can really take action on. Here in LA, we've got 4 million people. So this is our demographic. 220 languages are spoken. So we need to think about multilinguality. And as I've mentioned before, there's huge inequalities between the way in which we measure, gather data, and communicate to different communities around the city. There's environmental justice issues. We have this complex geography and conditions. And again, we produce tons of particulate matter, although we do have a lot of regulations and we have the ability to impose more as needed. which is again part of the outcome of this project. So there's a few ways that we've presented information, not particularly unique to air quality, but I just want to give you some sense of how we've been doing things that have been effective. So during COVID and other emergencies, we do text messaging. So you can see an example of Notify LA in the upper right corner here. So text messaging is one effective way. It does generally require people to subscribe, right? So you have to agree to get those text messages or opt in. So that's one thing. We have this Predicting What We Breathe project, which we have more information online, and the data sets for that are also available. And we have our GitHub repository, and information is also, some of the data is up on OpenAQ, as well as our GeoHub, our ESRI GeoHub with the city. In addition, South Coast Air Quality Management District does have a mobile app for air quality. You can see a couple of screenshots here. What it tells you, and I use this almost every day, what it tells you is what the air quality is today at this moment. And so I know if I'm going to be driving downtown to work, and I live up in the mountain where air quality is better, so I can actually breathe during the day, that I can see where it is between my commute. Most people in Los Angeles commute 45 minutes or so. So there's an opportunity there about telling people not just about the air quality where they are, but on their drive, right? So think about how we might do that, either connected into like a system like Waze or something else, or being able to tell people where in their, in the vicinity there might be better air quality. We also have two other interesting applications that have been helpful. One is called Know Your Community. These are the screenshots kind of at the bottom. This is a really easy one for us to build off of. It's managed here in our office. So this uses a variety of maps and visualizations to be able to tell people different kinds of information. So this is focused on like what's happening around my community. So where potholes being filled or what the demographics are. So this is kind of an interesting and helpful interface, but again, a lot of data. The most popular app we ever created, actually Dawn and I led the creation of this, was called Shake Alert LA. It was the first earthquake early warning app in the country. And it's been the most popular app at the city ever, with over 1 million downloads. So this is maybe an interesting example because it's very simple. It's just getting information to you. It shows maps and information around you. And then it also gives a listing of data. So, and things with green, yellow, red. So we have this, I put some of these screenshots in Spanish because this app has been available in both English and Spanish. We've now merged this app into our statewide app as well. So, so this has been an interesting piece, and a shout out to the Shake Alert team at USGS, Steve's old stomping grounds, that helps to provide the data for this. And then we also, a shout out to ESRI, we have a group of students each year with a National Science Foundation grant that works on different kinds of things. One that they just worked on was this Asthma Alley story map. So there's a link to that. Here's just a sample where they're looking at what they're calling Asthma Alley, which is down by the Port of Los Angeles, in a particularly poor area. And so they're looking at preschools and schools that are related to where there's high emissions from manufacturing and the port. And so this is an area where we could potentially, take some action. These kinds of visualizations can be helpful. So what we're trying to find out is what's the best way to get information to healthcare providers to help their patients. So sometimes it's not direct to a person, but it could be through an intermediary. So we're working with Kaiser Permanente and Anthem Blue Cross as some of our healthcare providers. What is the best way to get information to those suffering from respiratory diseases so that might be affected by poor air quality? How can we make information more actionable so it's not just here's a random map? And in what ways does the real-time data, like I know what the air quality is here in downtown Los Angeles right now, but it might be really helpful for me to know what it's going to be like 2 days from now, because maybe that will be a telework day for me rather than coming down. So there are opportunities there. And we just have lots of great partners. And Mike Little was one of the formulators of some of the ideas for this. So thanks to all of the ESIP community and the previous workshop they held that helped to bring this about. That was probably way too long, Mike.
Actually, Gene, that was really great. You really hit almost all of the major issues that we need to think about in doing this. So now we're ready for Karen Moe to talk about the Chevrolet Maryland use case. And I will just make a slight adjustment to the schedule while Karen's getting queued up here. We're going to run until 12:30. And we're going to spend 30 minutes with a Q&A and self-selection. We may cut that short so that Karen has plenty of time. And Ethan and I have been confabbing on the side and have decided not to do the third use case just now. We are I think both of us are very interested in the asthmatic situation. I think Gene talked about some of that. I think Karen will probably talk about some of that some more. So we'll figure out how we're going to move that use case forward after we get through these two. So take it away, Karen.
Thank you. And thank you, Gene. That was really an excellent overview of the types of issues. I represent a small town in Maryland, just outside of Washington, D.C. And although Washington, D.C. is part of a very large metropolitan area, our industry, in the whole metropolitan area is somewhat different, maybe not quite as extreme as LA, but the nature of living in a small neighborhood within a metropolitan area and dealing with the various air quality problems that arise is quite similar, I think. So I really feel like I might be like a small neighborhood in LA, the kinds of things that might be developed from a macro point of view for a large city is going to be very helpful for these micro communities within the metropolitan area. So my project is really a very small town-sponsored project with the University of Maryland, which is locally here, but it's their public health department. Dr. Jacoby Wilson and Michelle Archer, our PhD student, who are leading this project. And their focus has been very much on, they have this lab, the community engagement, environmental justice, and health. And so he's got a number of small projects dealing with community engagement, especially in neighborhoods that are highly impacted by pollution. And so what I'd like to do next is just show you this map of Chevrolet. This is the border of Chevrolet, and within it, all those little purple dots are where we have located approximately 21 purple air units for measuring particulate matter. And if let me first back off so you can kind of see where we're located relative to Washington, D.C. So here's Washington, D.C. Those of you who may know the Potomac River, the Anacostia River. And so this neighborhood is all within Prince George's County. And there are a number of what I would consider environmental justice issues that impact the community, the county. The county is a majority African-American, I should say a majority minority population. And it's the second largest county in Maryland. And so this project focuses very much on what is happening within this neighborhood. The focus of my use case is really the town council and mayor. These are the town of Cheverly is incorporated, and we have about 6,000 to 7,000 people living in the town, members of the town. And so really a very small community. The footprint here is about a little less than 1.3 square miles. So for satellite data, you're getting down to parts of pixels. And we do have a couple of schools in the region here or within town. And we've actually located some of our purple ear units very close to the schools. And I've really made an effort to reach out to the schools so that they can engage their students, their elementary up to 8th grade schools. There's a couple of high schools in the neighborhood, but not inside the city. So that's one of our objectives, is really this community engagement, and especially an educational component of learning more about air quality and its importance to public health, and ways that the community can really take a hold of their information and use it to improve their health, the health of their family members. The other area is this idea of the environmental justice. And let me go ahead and change this map to show you what the background looks like. And what you can see here is that Cheverly is a nice neighborhood, lots of nice trees in the incorporated area. But if you look in the surrounding area, it's much denser homes, less trees than we actually have in our city, in our town. And this whole region to the south and to the west, where it's very gray, is a lot of zoned heavy industry. And several of these areas have been kind of dormant over the last 5 years, but we are finding a lot of new industries moving in. And so a key feature that I'm hoping we can solve for my town is the ability to establish an air quality baseline. I have some data from the purple air monitors right here. This particular purple air unit was installed about 5 years ago. It currently is not operating very well, but we do have data that goes back certainly before the pandemic. And one of the things that we're finding is that industries are coming in to this region, and they're bringing with them a lot of bus and truck traffic. You can already see that the town is surrounded by this US Route 50. There's this Kenilworth Avenue, which goes through a lot of heavy industrial areas. The Baltimore-Washington Parkway, people keep impinging upon it. There's interest in overlaying it with a maglev train, which a number of people in the region are fighting for environmental justice concerns. And then there's another major road on the north side of town. And on all of these roads, we have a lot of truck traffic. But there's a couple of industries moving in, including a bus depot, which is looking to take over kind of some vacant land where you can see my cursor in this portion. And we've been told that there's nothing, the town can't do anything about it, even though when they have a bus depot with about 125 buses that are diesel and not electric. They don't plan to move to electric. These are Washington, D.C. buses. They're planning to go to full electric by 2045. And so that's not going to help us in the near term. But anyway, those buses are going to be going up through the town and then picking up this Route 50 to go into the district to then serve the whole of the district. And that is a huge concern to us. And right now we're saying that we've been told that because we have no air quality baseline, we don't have a leg to stand on to say for the town to insist that certain levels of air pollution be maintained. So that is one concern. We have another facility that is coming in over in this area, also industrial. It will be a last mile kind of distribution center. It's actually one of those Amazon facilities. They're going to have 400 of their small bus trucks coming in daily, loading up from the warehouse, and then distributing all those wonderful products throughout the region. So a lot of traffic is coming from these areas. This portion of the town here, we call it our old Ward 4. It's on the other side of the railroad tracks. There's a lot of disruption of bringing the whole community together. And when they want to leave their neighborhood, they often have almost a half-hour wait getting onto this very busy road that has all of this truck traffic on it, coming from a variety of businesses already located here. And the two businesses that the two efforts that I mentioned to you are being planned. And so our town council really would like to have an air quality baseline. And so the question is, can we extract information that would be relevant to our town from previous data sets? And so I have been in discussions with some of Milt Halem, who was formerly at Goddard and is currently at the University of Maryland at UMBC. And he has some ciliometer data and is running some models to see if we can extract, his team can extract PM 2.5 data over a period of, I think, 2018. I've also reached out to the Maryland Department of Environment, and I will say that we have a very good relationship with our State Department of Environment, and they are currently running a pilot project because all along this region, if you can see my cursor, there is, and it goes into the District of Columbia. There's a lot of complaints for bad smells, for just air pollution. We have health impacts. Prince George's County really had the highest level of impact from the COVID-19 illnesses and deaths in the state of Maryland. So we have a lot of focus in this area on the problems that we are facing. And the Maryland Department of Environment set up a pilot project that they're actually running this summer, trying to kind of catch these industries who might be polluting beyond their permits. We in particular have an industry over here, which is quite a large junkyard. It's a recycling facility, and they crush cars, and we hear a lot of booms from the facility. And so there's been just a lot of complaints. And these orange dots that are showing up here are areas that where we are still seeking to put up a couple more of our hyper-local purple air network. So we've all these purple ones here have been installed also down in this region. But now that we're going outside of the town, it's been a little more challenging to get people accepting these units. Ideally, we have them running off of people's homes that requires their Wi-Fi and an outdoor electrical outlet. So we're still trying to get a couple of these units installed that would be south of this particularly problematic industry that's been a neighbor of ours since forever. So this idea of having a air quality baseline from a past before these new industries are coming in would be very helpful. And there's also the possibility with all of the heavily trafficked roads here of leveraging some diesel, some funding that has been set aside in Maryland for managing diesel pollution. So that's a potentially future opportunity for us to, I don't know how yet, but perhaps help to clean that clean that air up. The last thing that I was going to mention is that I did work through the Maryland Department of Environment and requested a data set. You may be familiar with EPA has the state required every 4 years to generate a report about their air quality. And I know that the department is working on the 2020 report. It takes most of a year to get the report actually run. But they are running a report from, I believe, 2017. And I believe that that data is available for the whole county. And we thought we might be able to extract some information that would be relevant to our town. Our town, of course, is adjacent to the district of Columbia. So we're on the far west side of the county. And there's a good deal of the county that is outside of the highly populated metropolitan area inside our beltway, which would have a little better air than we typically have due to all the traffic. But those were the key points that I wanted to make. And I thought I would just real quickly show you our network of purple air units. And I'm finding this very interesting that I think many of you might be familiar with purple air, but we're currently experiencing poor weather, poor air quality. So this cluster here is ours in the town, and I can see a couple of our units are currently down. One unit here is the one I mentioned that's about 5 years old and really is in need of repair. But one of the questions that I have is this is a hyper local purple air network, and what is the right number of units? We definitely have found, having 2 or 3 together is very helpful to just kind of quality check the data that we're getting. But at this point, we really have not done any analysis of the data. Most of these units have been up since February, March timeframe of this year. A few of them have been up since last September. So this is kind of our current data.
Karen, I'm sorry to interrupt, but could you bring your points out to a conclusion in about the next 5 minutes, please?
Actually, yep, so I'm very close to that.
Great.
So my points are that the town of Cheverly needs an air quality baseline that could pass muster at least with the state of Maryland. We currently have a pretty good relationship with the Maryland Department of Environment. They are using this network for this pilot program that they are doing over the summer to monitor the industries in this region. And that our long-term goals for the network are primarily focused on public health, in addition then to this town's need for policy data that they can use in discussing their input to county and state permitting for industry that neighbor is in our neighborhood. So Mike, that's the end of my overview of my use case.
That's great. It sounds like a challenging problem, and it should be interesting to see how things evolve through the hackathon with both of those. So we have a hard cutoff at 12:30 so that we can do the meeting that we've coordinated, or the presentation that we've coordinated with the rest of the ESIP meeting attendees. So we have about maybe a little over 10 minutes that we can ask questions of the two use cases involved and see, the objective would be for you all to decide which one you want to participate in. So if you could, I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to moderate this. I have
Mike, I might ask that there maybe be like a 5-minute break or something before that 12:30 part starts. So just please try to factor that in, because people have been sitting for a while.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to give them a chance to ask their questions before we took a break, but we'll try and do that at 12:25. And I see Steve Young has raised his hand. Go for it.
Thanks, Mike, and thanks to both Jean and Karen for the presentations. I'm curious, with both of you, are you currently using any NOAA information flows in your efforts? And I just sent a link to a NOAA site that I think is a pretty cool and potentially very useful resource. But are you working with NOAA at all to this point?
We just started integrating wildfire and smoke data, and I'm not sure which of the data sets that is. I don't know if our Cal State LA partner knows if that's NOAA data.
Got it. Okay, well, that's an answer that you're starting to move in that direction. Thanks, Gina. Karen, how about you?
So we have spent most of our attention on establishing our network. So it's on the engineering side, just getting into the data side. Now I have looked at and spoken with people who have the Smell My City application. I've had some conversations with Ethan. I know that EPA has some tools in that arena, and then the outreach in NASA, but I have not really gotten into weather data at this point at all.
Gotcha. If I may, for 1 second, I don't know if this is coming up or not, but this is a current product from that site that I linked. And so to Karen's point, you can see the smoke model showing very intense vertically integrated smoke coming all the way down through the mid-Atlantic, through DC. But it also shows how California is really catching a break right now, just based on the weather patterns. But I think this is just something to factor in going forward that I think is potentially pretty important. And I'm done.
Okay.
Thank
Thanks.
you. That's very useful.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions? So I've put in the chat window, there's quite a lot of conversation that's been going on, and it's really been entertaining to read the stuff that's going on in the chat window. It's kind of like reading a Washington Post article and then looking at all the comments that people provide. These are actually much more intellectual than many of the ones that you see in response to Washington Post articles. But there is somewhere in the stream, there is a very early on, there was a message from me that identified the sign up page for the to sign up if you want to get an AGOL account. That's at about the 11:39 point, and I'll try and paste it back in again. Hopefully this.
Like, that's not just to get an ArcGIS Online account, but it's also to identify which team you want to participate on, right?
Yes.
So everyone's encouraged to fill out the form regardless of whether they're getting an account, but.
Right. Yeah, but we're going to primarily use that. That also will augment our registration for the meeting. I just repasted that form in there. It's not very complicated, but if you would identify which group you want to be on, and again, the asthma group will not do an initial start, and Ethan and I will try and figure out how we're going to move that ahead after we get started with the other two groups. So if nobody has any questions, we have about 10 minutes before the ESRI orientation to ArcGIS Online will occur. So if you'd take a quick break, get yourself some chow, be back at 12:30 or in 9 minutes, depending on which time zone you're in. We'll go ahead and get set up to do that orientation. And also, if you would go to that website and identify what group you want to be in, and make sure that we have your email. There were people who registered for the session in the ESIP site, but that didn't include an email. So if you haven't been on this particular Google Doc, the form that we're using, we don't have your email address, so we need that in order to create an account. So I'll be online, so if anybody has any questions for me, please feel free to throw them at me. And with that, we'll temporarily adjourn until 12:30 or whichever 30 it is in your time zone. We give it one more minute. Why don't we give it one more minute, and we'll start and see if there's anybody else who's going to show up.
Okay, sounds good. Welcome everybody. I tell you what, why don't I just go through the introductions while the last few people join the webinar. We've got a full hour's worth of information that we want to pass along, and I thank my colleague Dr. Lane Graham, a senior solution engineer from our ESRI Washington DC office. She mentioned earlier in the call, she's responsible for both NASA and EPA. Has done a lot of great work that many of you have been party to. She's joined by Yvonne Din. Yvonne is a master's student at University of California, Santa Barbara, a UVA grad student, a GIS whiz-bang, and she's been on our team all summer now. I'll just turn over the microphone to Lane and Yvonne, and we've got a number of topics to share with you, and we're looking forward to it. Thanks, Elaine. Thanks, Yvonne.
Thank you, Kurt. And can everyone see my screen and hear me okay? Looks great. Sounds great.
Looks great.
So we are going to run through quite a few things today, and Yvonne and I have some short demonstrations to kind of help you get started. Based on some of the introductions, it sounds like there's some familiarity already, but for those that have none, we'd like to provide that baseline. And I also want to let you know that we're here as technical resources along the way, and that you all have the subject matter expertise and perhaps the working knowledge of some of these workflows, which we can help to collaborate and teach others. And we're really excited to be a part of this and participate and learn and grow and share our knowledge and help from the technical side as well. So today we're going to be covering ArcGIS Online and kind of introducing you to the organization that we'll be using for the hackathon. And we'll go through just a couple of the different key things that we'll be using to help enable the workflow, as well as show where those connective nodes are into some of the other products to support workflows to do your work. And then we'll get into the map viewer. So for those of you that have used ArcGIS Online, you may or may not be familiar with the new map viewer. So there's the classic and then the new one. Yvonne will show you a demonstration of the map viewer, and then we'll go into enabling decision-making with dashboards, and I'll do an overview of ArcGIS notebooks and how to get started with them, as well as identifying some help documentation and lessons. Then we'll cover a little bit more about Survey 123 and Hub for dissemination, as well as some resources to point you to get you started. And again, just think about Kurt and Yvonne and I as technical resources and just help to brainstorm and help you be successful. So ArcGIS Online, for those that haven't used it, is a cloud-based interactive platform for data discovery, dissemination, for building out applications, for doing some cartography and better identifying ways to make your information translatable, to put the right messaging around information that you're publishing, bringing it all together to inform decision making. And we'll see some examples of that in action related to air quality. So for this particular effort, I have created an organization that we will be using. And for those of you that have already gotten a notification that you have been invited to this organization, go ahead and log in if you've gotten an email. If you have not gotten an email yet, Yvonne and I will be going through that list and adding you throughout this session. And then in the later session today, we will confirm that you have access to not only the organization, but the applications that you'd like to use to enable your work. So this is just an overview of the org that we'll be using. So you may or may not have gotten an email, and you'll have a notification bell that you've been invited to a couple of groups that we have set up. The groups that have been set up already by Mike include these three. So you'll be kind of invited to one of those. And you also have access to a variety of our applications. So you should have access to all of the different applications that you see here, as well as notebooks. And we'll cover kind of how to find these resources, as well as identify data to help build out your workflows to do your work. So if you haven't gotten an invitation, it will be coming today. So in terms of ways to utilize ArcGIS Online, it connects in with ArcGIS Pro. For those of you that are familiar with our desktop software, ArcMap and ArcGIS Pro are our desktop software, and it connects in with ArcGIS Online to be able to publish out content, to identify content that's shared at the organizational level or in your content, as well as the Living Atlas. And so I just wanted to show you a couple of different resources that you have access to, both in ArcGIS Online and then connected into ArcGIS Pro, to be able to not only access information and load it in, but to be able to conduct analysis. And this is both with imagery, as well as data from tables and other formats that are in the form of feature layers, or points, lines, and polygons, which we traditionally think about location-enabled data. So you'll be able to work both with ArcGIS Online and Pro with the licenses that have been provided, and you'll just log into your account with the information that we have sent you, and you have a license to be able to connect into ArcGIS Pro to utilize it for your workflows. And I know not all of you will be doing that, but if you have identified team members that can be that ArcGIS Online or the notebook individual, or someone that will do the data science, data analysis, then you can have each of those roles, but you all have access to utilize them. So in terms of making maps and creating information products, you can bring in information in a number of different ways. And Yvonne will show you some of the ways that you can bring in layers and access information that's been shared. But we also have a repository of information that you may or may not be aware of. And I just wanted to take a second here to show you the Living Atlas of the World, which you have connection points into both through ArcGIS Online and ArcGIS Pro, as we see here. So you simply would go to the Add Data tab in ArcGIS Pro, and you would access then your portal, which has not only your content from your organization and information you and your team have contributed, but you also get everything that's been shared publicly in ArcGIS Online, as well as the Living Atlas. And this is wonderful too, because it's information products that have been shared to everyone. And you're able to access these and filter them by specific topics. So if we're interested in climate-based data or application examples or a number of other different categories, you can search through here and find data that you need. We have live feature services, and you can see this check mark, which means that it's authoritative. And we have hosted this information. It's been contributed from NASA, NOAA, EPA, and a variety of other federal agencies, as well as state and local and other contributors. But you have access to all of this. And so I encourage you to go find information that might be valuable to help with your workflow, identify the scale, the geography you need, bring it in, and you can modify these services to better display information to help tell your story or conduct your analysis. So this is a great resource to be able to leverage and utilize, and it's available to you within that organization. So Yvonne will show you how to access that from ArcGIS Online, and I just showed you how to do that in ArcGIS Pro. In terms of sharing out information, there's so many wonderful examples related to air quality, and this is just one of them that utilizes EPA Air Now data as well as NOAA and census information that's been contributed. So this is an end product, an application that's interactive, it's live, it's public facing, and it's something that we can use to help tell the story about how the impact occurs at both a national scale and then more specifically at a regional scale, to understand how air quality that's happening right now, being reported right now, might affect a particular region. And so these pop-ups, which are configurable, and we will be a source of support to help configure those along the way, as well as information that can be derived from analysis related to the data layers that you are building into your information products. You can use this application as a wrapper to be public facing, to provide information related to air quality or other factors such as demographic data that might help better convey a solution to your problem or better understand exactly what that problem is. So sharing out information in this collaborative way is also a means to inspire others, as well as identify data sets that could be helpful in telling your story. So one of the things as a PhD student, and I'm sure some of you as researchers, we go and we find bibliographies or we find information that's been contributed and go and utilize those data layers or information or workflows and then build upon them. And that's exactly what you could do here. You can bring in not only information that you contributed, but use this as a platform to better understand what others have done, that impact, and how to tell that story using these variables or the data that's been contributed. And then you can use things like story maps and these cartographic tools that are built into ArcGIS Online and ArcGIS Pro to better highlight and convey the results of your analysis to others. So here we see in a story map format, the dissemination of information related to PM 2.5, as well as time series information from a 19-year average. So we can look at not only what's happening now, but what has happened over time and how those two things might help us better understand patterns and identify solutions. And so the story map that I'm presenting from today will be shared. It's a leave behind, it has resources embedded in it. And we encourage you not only to use the links here, but if you have questions about any of the content that is here, you're welcome to ask myself or Yvonne for additional information or helping to identify where these data sets are or other potential avenues where we can provide help or technical guidance. So this is just another example of an application that EPA has developed. This is around air quality monitoring. And so you have a splash screen. You're able to make applications like this in ArcGIS Online. And we have lessons to help enable you to learn the best practices on how to do this, as well as display your information in a compelling format. So from identifying how to put those layers together and how to activate different things to finding that base map that's going to help tell your story more effectively, and what you might be able to leverage in terms of existing content that you can use in the construction of that story. So I'm going to hand it over to Yvonne to take you through a how-to around utilizing the ArcGIS online environment, specifically the web map viewer, to bring in content and display it effectively. Yvonne?
Okay, thanks, Lane. Let me try to share my screen. I think you have to stop sharing first. Okay, there you go. All right, everyone can see this, right? Can everyone see this screen, the ESIP Hackathon story map?
We can see it and we can hear
Okay,
you.
cool, awesome. All right, so first up is ArcGIS Map Viewer. And Map Viewer within ArcGIS Online enables you to create interactive web maps that you can share publicly or within your organization. And here is an example of a map built within Map Viewer. Just going to open it up in a new tab here. And this is just air quality monitoring sites across the United States. And like, this is a pretty simple map. It's just like all the points geographically within the United States, and it has pretty simple symbology. But using the map viewer, you can like customize this layer however you like. And with that, I'll show you all how to create a map using a citizen science report that smell survey that we had created through survey 123 within the Los Angeles area. Just gonna leave this here. So once you open up Map Viewer, this is what you get, just a blank map. And first thing that I'm going to do is add that layer. And as Lane had mentioned before, you can pull layers from a variety of different sources. We briefly demoed the Living Atlas. So like if I went to the Living Atlas, you can pull a bunch of different sources from different organizations like Esri right here, but I'm gonna pull specifically from my groups. And this is where that survey data lives. So once I add it to the map, all my points are right here within the Los Angeles area. And these are just like points that were geographically, or the geographical points of where survey respondents were. And I might want to edit the layer based off of how each respondent, or like what each respondent had smelled. So I'll go to field and go down to describe the smell. And once I do that, the points are kind of populated, or they're symbolized based off of the smell. So I guess these red points are chemical, these blue points are sour milk, and so on. And you can customize your symbology however you want. You can configure it however you like. If you just mess around with these different options. I like this color ramp, so I'm just going to keep it as a default, but I think the points are a bit small, so I'm just going to make them a bit bigger. And I'll click done and done here. And the legend disappeared, but you can catch the legend just on the left sidebar here. And what's great about this is you can kind of click these individual points, and a pop-up with all the attribute information opens up. And I guess for further customization's sake, you can also change the base map. I'm going to change it to dark gray canvas. And this way the colors on the map pop up a lot better. So it's pretty like quick and easy map that I just made in 5 minutes. And I'm just going to go ahead and save it. And I'll call it Citizen Science Smells Web Map. And now that exists within my account. And what's great about this web map is that it's really simple, but like maybe you want to add a bit more for your hackathon question. So you can use ArcGIS dashboards, which are another product within ArcGIS Online. And ArcGIS dashboards enables users to convey their location-based analytics through intuitive and interactive data visualizations. And what's great about dashboards is that they update real time. They're easy to understand. The dashboard interface is all within one screen, so you can add any type of analytics that you want. They're ready to use out of the box. You just log into your account and you can create a dashboard right then and there. And they're super interactive. So here is an example of a dashboard. And like if I just click one of these sites, it zooms me right in. And with that, I'll show you all a quick demo using the map that I had just created. So if you log into your account and click on dashboards, this is what your dashboard will look like. I went ahead and just like named my dashboard already, but this is a blank ArcGIS dashboard. First thing I'm going to do is add an element, and I'm going to add that map that I had literally just created. So if I go in here and I pull out this Citizen Science Smells web map, I'm going to add a scale bar and maybe a legend. And I'll click done. And there's that map that I literally just created a couple minutes ago. And this is like the first and only element on this dashboard. So it takes up the entire screen here. But I can go ahead and add another element. I'm going to add a serial chart. And again, this is just pulling data from the survey 123 that we will talk about more. So maybe I want to know how does the air smell right now? So I'll choose that for the category field, and then a bar graph with the counts of each answer auto populates. And this all looks good to me, but I think I'm just going to change the color. And again, there are a bunch of great color ramps to choose from. I'm just going to choose the second one here. So each color corresponds to like a different answer within the survey. And that looks good. So that exists on my dashboard now. And what's great about dashboards is that it has that click and drag interface. So if I don't like where this is sitting, I can literally just like drag it to the right over here. And to match the theme of my web map, which is kind of like a darker gray, I'm just going to go into the settings here and change it to dark. So it's all kind of a bit more uniform. And I'm just going to go ahead, keep adding more elements to my dashboard. I'm going to do an indicator, again, just pulling from that survey. And this 23 number right here is just the number of responses we got from the survey. So I will just add a title to it and click done and move it over here. And then I'm just going to add one more element for fun. I'm going to do a pie chart, just again pulling from that data. And I think the category field will be I'll do the describe the smell like. And I'm going to change the color ramp to what I have been choosing beforehand. And just going to click and drag it. Okay, cool. So this is my super interactive dashboard that I had also just created in 5 minutes. And like this dashboard tells me more than just like the types of smells that maybe users have put in, but it also tells me what the air or how strong the smell was down at the bottom. Cool. All right. So that's my little dashboard demo. And then I'll leave it to Lane to talk about notebooks.
Thanks, Yvonne. If you could stop sharing, I'll take over. Thank you. So Yvonne gave you a run through of how to get started with ArcGIS Online, where to get oriented and find the different applications that you need to build those information products out and get started. I wanted to show you ArcGIS notebooks, and let me show you from two perspectives. The first of which is for those of you that are comfortable with ArcGIS Pro, maybe you're a little bit more of a robust ArcGIS user. You can leverage notebooks directly inside ArcGIS Pro. And the way to do that is to go to the Analysis tab and hit the Python button, and then you can start with a new Python notebook, or alternatively, you could use the Python window to just run Python directly. So you can start to leverage notebooks just right inside ArcGIS Pro and build those out here, just as we see an example that I've laid out that goes through the different libraries that you're importing and then running the steps to handle a particular workflow. So there's that option, but you also have ArcGIS notebooks in ArcGIS Online, which is exciting to be able to do more robust analysis, to access those open source libraries, and really leverage Python to do some more higher end spatial statistical analysis just directly in the cloud. So not only can you optimize your analysis by bringing in, importing those layers of data that we saw, but you can actually have these output. So to visualize ozone, for instance, in this particular example, and to run these algorithms to be able to arrive at different conclusions for output. We also support the utilization of deep learning tools and machine learning. So leveraging artificial intelligence on full motion video, for example, you can use our spatial analysis tools to be able to use notebooks as a wrapper, a means, a conduit to build your workflows out and do some pretty robust analysis. So not only are they wonderful tools for individual workflows, but they also support the collaboration and utilization that you're accustomed to with open data and open science. So you can share the notebooks, you can download them, you can share the code out. They support the use of notebooks between groups. They're really great collaborative resources that outline step-by-step a workflow that you use to accomplish or address a spatial data problem. So I'm going to jump into our organization, and the way that you access from the homepage of your org, the ArcGIS notebooks is there is a tab here in the middle. So you're going to select notebook. If you haven't done this in ArcGIS Online before, it's very exciting to have this capability available. And we have a variety of different getting started tools for those that are fairly new to Python. I know these have been helpful for myself and Yvonne as we're going through and just getting oriented with best handling some of these spatial data problems. So you can get started with the learn lessons and handle sample notebooks and kind of work from the known to the unknown. Or if you're a Python user and you know the language and the syntax and you're able to leverage that, you can just get to work in an ArcGIS notebook and get started. The great thing is not only are you able to share it within your organization, but you can also share it in a variety of other ways. You can share it to a group, you could share it to the public, or you can create it to be a downloadable item. We also have available in the notebooks, in addition to these lessons and sample notebooks that you can utilize, but you can also add information here directly from your ArcGIS Online organization. So such as the layers that we've been showing you today and the different demonstrations, but you can also access content from groups, as well as your organization, the entire public domain that's been shared in ArcGIS Online, or of course the Living Atlas. And you can plug these layers in as you're building out your workflow. And you can also conduct analysis in the ArcGIS notebooks. And the great thing about the way that the analysis tools are handled now, similar to ArcGIS Pro, not only are you able to see the standard analysis tools that are available, but you can add it directly as a cell in your notebook, as well as understand what the specific tool does. So it gives you a preview of what this will do, just like in ArcGIS Pro, when you click on a notebook or click on a tool, a geoprocessing tool, it gives you a summary of what to expect. So it's very nice to have all of these available, and you can just plug them in as a cell into your notebook and start to leverage that in your analysis. So there's an example here that we have. If you will remember the last presentation that Brady and I did to this group, we showed a little bit about the configuration of the citizen science solution that we developed to demonstrate ways that we could conduct citizen science, contributed information about air quality or specific smells in the Los Angeles area. So for this example, I've just set up a really simple notebook to be able to pull in that Survey 123 hosted feature service. And we're just going to import some libraries to help us get started and be able to enrich that data, as well as a pandas data frame. And we're going to conduct just a simple reference to the Survey 123 hosted feature layer that is in the same organization, but we're pulling in that item ID to reference it. It's going to return the output, which is essentially the fields or the categories in the information. We can then do stuff like export it into an Excel spreadsheet. So that could be a handy tool to have to be able to download that survey information and have it. Next, we can create a sample plot and be able to understand better what that information looks like and how it's distributed, what the categories of information are most prominent. So we have, as bad as it gets and all good are kind of the highest contributed points of data that have been submitted by citizens in this area. So next, what we can do is we can add in some additional information. And this is just showing us what that hosted feature service looks like in our org. So we get a preview of that. And then we can know exactly what that item is, what the URL is. And this will help us because then we can conduct analysis. So we can enrich data with demographic information. So that layer is then made even richer by putting in demographic data to help us better understand the spatial distribution of these smells in relation to the population information. And we can do this in a couple of different ways. We can go through and enrich the layer here with our tools and just bring that in, or we could just write the code out, and we can then run that and create a plot to be able to understand what that looks like. So we'll be able to run that and see where our points are in reference to the location of interest. And then we can see here, we have that enriched data that's been visualized, and we can click on it and interact with the submission in the Survey 123 form and see everything here in terms of the fields and categories. Additionally, we can do some other sample analysis. So who's being impacted? Let's create a buffer around these individual features to be able to better understand kind of that range of impact. So we have our buffer that's been placed, and then we can conduct additional analysis, or we could just report and create a map that has that enriched layer visualized. This was great too, because not only do we have our workflow that has been documented, and we can give our collaborators some insight into why we did certain things, but we can also share this out at the organizational level. And then Yvonne could pick up where I left off and add on some additional data layers from the Living Atlas, and we can start to really flesh out our analysis here in a collaborative format. So in just a brief overview, that is how to access and utilize ArcGIS notebooks. I did want to share with you some resources. So this is some of our documentation. It's embedded in the story map. Again, we're going to share this out, so feel free to leverage what's already been kind of pre-filtered for you. But this is how to get started. We have a variety of resources as well as documentation for the Python syntax and just better understanding what the different types of analysis do. And we have some learn lessons for those that aren't familiar with Python or Python in an ArcGIS environment, so that you can get started creating your own. We also have sample notebooks. So there are quite a few, as well as we have a GitHub repository that you can access, and then really great documentation on ArcGIS Python API, so that you can better understand how to get the most out of your analysis and leveraging those notebooks for those that are new to Python. So with that, I'm going to jump just briefly into Survey 123. We referenced this feature layer that we've been using throughout the demonstrations. And even if you're not going to be using citizen science contributed data to tackle these problems, perhaps it's just something that you want to get feedback about the workflow that you've created, or you could use Survey 123 in a variety of other formats, whether it's public facing or to gather and collect data as we've shown in today's presentation. So Survey 123 is a form-based geocentric tool that allows you to collect information that is a hosted feature service that can be leveraged in ArcGIS Online. As we've showed you, we've utilized that feature layer in a variety of demonstrations. And it can help us to not only have this form-based technology, but ensure that the geographic information is centralized. And we not only know where information is being collected and when, but we can leverage it on a map to help inform our workflows or better understand a problem in a particular area. So these are super simple, just like the dashboard or some of the ArcGIS Online tools that we've showed you. It's a drag and drop interface. And Survey 123, it really is pretty simple to use. Not only are you able to create these pages, but you can manage the relationships within these particular questions. So if you have one page here and you want to collect information about a particular, the contact information or about a particular individual or problem, you can break it up into different sections. So you're also able to leverage then a reporting function as well as a variety of choices. So you can bring in the map function as well as some other choices here with different survey types. So if your project includes the collection of qualitative data, this might be an additional tool to have in your arsenal. And as you can see here, we have rules that you can set. So if one question is answered a particular way, you can help to drive an answer to be collected by a user in another format. So if they provide yes to a particular question, then you can give them a series of choices or suggestions. So there's form-based smart logic that can be built into these surveys, as well as, of course, our location-based information. So the last thing that I wanted to leave you with is the ArcGIS Hub. And Hub is a wonderful resource for dissemination. It's essentially like a robust geospatially focused website that you can use not only to highlight information, help make data more discoverable, but it's a platform for collaboration and dissemination. So if you have an initiative, if air quality needs to be an action item or a call to action for the public, and you want to highlight the work that you're doing, Hub is one way that can be accomplished, to be able to provide a platform from which individuals can discover information, highlight new applications or examples, and encourage the public to engage. So this is just one example of a hub that we have created for GIS for Climate, and you can highlight statistics as well as data access. So pointing people to the information that matters most, as well as visualizations, applications, and how to. So it could be a pretty robust tool in the initiative to help with collaboration, dissemination of data, especially with a geospatial focus. You can also embed a survey. So we see here, Survey 123 has come back. So to contribute information about the interaction with this particular site, as well as maybe from an air quality perspective, some additional tools or suggestions from the public about how to make it more effective or feedback on a workflow. So finally, I want to leave you with some resources. There are quite a few that we offer. I wanted to point you to some that have a climate or a focus for this particular hackathon. So our GIS for Climate Hub is a wonderful resource that's full of applications for inspiration. We do have quite a few that you can not only identify ways to visualize and work with different types of climate-based data, but it's also serves as a point of discovering information and finding some relevant sources to utilize as you're constructing your workflows. And finally, we have a variety of lessons as well. So if you know what you want to do, but not sure how to do it, of course, Yvonne and I are happy to help brainstorm through those workflows and identify the best data types. But we also provide a variety of lessons that help walk through some of the more complex tools and help you to get inspiration for not only working with the technology and the data, but creating impactful and really compelling visual dissemination tools as well. So I hope that this has been informative, and I really look forward to working with each of you and ensuring that you have the tools and resources that you need to accomplish your mission here at the hackathon. So Yvonne and I would like to thank you for your time.
Thanks, Lane. Thanks, Yvonne. So as Lane mentioned, we do want to support the hackathon in the I guess it's 5 weeks actually between now and the actual delivery of your projects. And so Lane and Yvonne will set up office hours, if you will, in the course of the next weeks, and we'll publish that out to all the teams. And if you have questions, just attend those office hours. Offer those questions up to us, and we can research those for you and get back to you. So we've been through about 40 minutes of a workshop. We did want to leave time for Q&A. So tell you what, let's just open up the mic if anyone had questions, and let Lane and Yvonne address them. And then I actually have a bonus feature about some available data sets from EPA. We'll talk about that here once Q&A is over. So let me just open up the mic for Q&A.
And I do see some questions coming in through the chat about access to the organization. I'm going to, after we address questions that are coming in, take a moment to go through and ensure that people have access. So if you have submitted to that form that Mike provided a link for, you will get access to the organization for the hackathon, but it might take about an hour or so for you to get that email. But we will ensure that that is done today and that you can get in.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning that that's actually the first activity in the afternoon session. That as you come back into our Zoom call, then the first thing we'll do is we'll troubleshoot, allow you to get on there and get into your accounts. And if the accounts aren't working, then Lane, Yvonne can do their magic and make them functional for you, or answer any questions if you have things that you want to do to get started. So that's actually the first activity in the afternoon. Sounds good. Any other questions there in the chat?
Can I ask a question? Karen here. I am wondering about data that might be relevant, specific, to my use case. And I know you had the Living Atlas, and I'm not really sure what is included in that, but I do know that there is a county atlas that includes a lot of information about zoning and the land surface as developed according to the records. And it's available as a public data set online. And I'm just wondering if it would make any sense to incorporate a portion, say, of that map into a dashboard. And if is that easy to do or difficult to do? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. If the data is not already spatially enabled or visualized in a way that we can access it either through the Living Atlas or ArcGIS Online, if it is publicly available data that you can download, then we can help work with you to visualize it and have it hosted on ArcGIS so that you can use that or a portion of the information that you could clip or refine or filter to be usable in a dashboard. So we can certainly work with you, Karen, if you have a specific data set in mind, or where that link is or the name of it. Yvonne and I can help to ensure that you're able to do what you'd like to do to visualize it in the dashboard.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can connect with you after this meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I did put a link to the story map that Yvonne and I shared on our presentation today. It's available here in the chat. And if you have any questions related to the content that we shared that come up as you're building out your workflows, or you hit a speed bump or something, feel free to reach out to us and we'll do our best to point you in the right direction or help you in any way we can.
Oh, that's great. So thanks so much, Yvonne. Oh, Sarah, do you have a question?
Yeah, just a quick one. Hi, Lane and Yvonne. Thanks so much for the demo. I'm really excited about the notebooks. I was just curious, I'm not as familiar with how the notebooks work within the ESRI suite, but how easy is it to load other types of libraries like sklearn or other things? I just wanted to hear a little more about how that would work with machine
Yeah.
learning models.
So there, we have some lessons on the specific, the import functions or the import code, but it's fairly easy. You essentially just would run a line to bring that in. Alternatively, with Pro, you're able to go in and load additional environments as well. So if you want to bring in some other libraries, you can do that here and install additional packages to work with as well. So yeah, depending on your specific need, I'm happy to work with you to get you set up with what you are comfortable using, and see if that's available in our online function as well.
Thank you. This is so cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think scikit-learn is one of the packages we use in ArcGIS Pro for artificial intelligence and machine learning too. So that might be a simple and easy lift. Was that the one you're talking about? Okay, super. Okay, any other questions? Otherwise, we'll turn it over to Ryan. As I mentioned, Ryan is the account manager, as he introduced himself. He's account manager and serves EPA after being an EPA employee for many years. So Ryan's familiar with some of the great stuff they're doing in air quality, and it just seemed like since we had the time, and you might find these data sets useful for your work in the hackathon or in your project work, or researching, et cetera. I thought it worth just showcasing, allowing Ryan to showcase some of the great stuff that EPA is publishing. So go ahead, Ryan.
Hey, thank you, Kurt. I appreciate that, and thank you all for the chance here. What I wanted to showcase is a lot of the public data sets that come from the EPA. They publish this through what's called the Environmental Dataset Gateway, and the application that's on the screen is really a metadata viewer for you to kind of be able to explore and discover data from the EPA. And one complementary product that they've included with it is this EDG hub site. And what this allows you to really do is to not only just read about the data and decide to download it, but work with it a little bit, understand it a little bit deeper, kind of before you either download it, before you try to pull that API. So rather simply, and I'll be happy to share this link in the chat in just a little bit here, but you can start by just simply exploring something like data in general, which is kind of how I like to do it. If I were real specific, I could search for air or perhaps TRI, toxic release inventory. But just starting here at this data tab, it will open up, and what I can do is kind of go by these filters. This will allow me to sort of explore data that may be complementary to your use case or to your area, whatever it is. I can pull on this category of air and see how kind of these things react. Now, I'll dive into one of these. I'll just pick this one without a lot of forethought. It's the top of the list here. This is an air major for compliance information systems. When I click on it, and we'll give this a second to load, I'm brought into another view, which is it's a spatial view. So I'm able to see the map of where this is, and obviously it's not zoomed out, or I have to zoom in a little bit in order to sort of understand what's all here and display this data. This map is something that's clickable then, kind of by default, so I can click on it and understand and get some information about it. I can come over to this left-hand side. I'll look through the data set. One thing I really like is to be able to view the table right away. So it gives me an idea of some of the ways in which I might want to think about how I would filter or how I would understand this data. Because I may be, for the use cases that are defined here, I don't necessarily need every single data point from this entire area. So what I can do is come over into this little filter tab, and let's say I have a different use case and I want to work with something different. I can click on, say, a state code, and let's say I'll just choose Pennsylvania here because it came up to the top. This will filter all the data except for the state of Pennsylvania, and give me a new record count for this. So after this filtering, I can kind of make decisions on whether I am interested in this data set. I can go further with this, of course, but let's say this is what I decided I want. I can go ahead and click on this little download icon and choose the method of which I can download and begin to work with my data. By clicking the toggle feature, you'll see that I have our maximum or total record count. When I click on the toggle feature, I filtered down, and that helps me understand what I'm about to pull down. So I can download it in any of these ways, which is great. Or let's say I want to think about working about this a little bit differently. There's this really fun spot right here. It says I want to use this, and you can immediately launch or create a map. You can begin to use this in order to create story maps. Or if you already have a project open, you can go ahead and get this service directly and be able to pull that into your data set or into your project or to your map, or even into your notebooks. I'm going to have to close this tab. Quickly looked at the link that Jean put in here from the City of Los Angeles. Another great way to go ahead and find data. Again, just by exploring here with data, I can kind of move around, and this would be great resources for all of you specific to the Los Angeles County air quality group here. So we can come in, and maybe it's just complementary data like finding a boundary to support your data sets. Maybe it's parks assessment, whatever it is, it allows you to really explore your data. So again, I will share the EPA Environmental Data Set Gateway, just as well the EPA Air Now site. I'll put those links in the chat in just a second. And please let me know if you have any questions. I hope you find kind of navigating the data, exploring data, and finding your data sets as easy as I do. Thanks, Kurt.
You bet, Ryan. So that concludes our webinar today. We're grateful for your attendance. We are joining back in an hour. I'll hand this back over to Mike to gavel out our session for this morning, but we are joining back at, let's see, I guess it's 2:30 Eastern time for the afternoon session. And we'll start that session with just some activities to organize your accounts, make sure they're working, and then allow the teams to spend some time together and do some initial planning. Mike, do you want to gavel us out?
Yeah, thanks, Kurt. And Lane and Yvonne, what a great job. I really appreciate all the effort you put in. And Ryan, that was extremely informative. So thanks for the insight into all that work. So lots of stuff to explore. Make sure that you sign the registration Google form, and we'll go ahead and get started trying to get accounts sorted out and everything. And I don't know, Allison asked, so two things. One is sorry, I'm trying to do two things at once, and I'm too old to remember how to do both of them. We will try and preserve the chat window without closing out the session for a bit anyway. I don't know whether we have to turn it off. That'll be a question for Megan. But then we'll also, I've put on the Quico chat page for this session, for the hackathon. That chat window also has most of the stuff that's been put into the chat into the Zoom chat window. So I'll try and make sure there's a couple of last minute additions that I want to make sure I put in there. But does anybody not have a way to get into Quico chat? Okay, so it's going to contain all the same links. I'm extracting them from the chat page. And so with that, I'll see you all in about an hour and change. Enjoy your
Mike,
lunch.
I will just leave this Zoom open. You can feel free to just mute and turn off your cameras as you all have right now, and we'll reconvene at 2:30.
Okay, is this going to be the same window?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great.
Yes, it's the same
Okay.
link.
Cool. Thanks, everybody. See you in an hour. So, yeah, so the recording's going, and I'm thinking we might want to wait just a couple of minutes we have 15 participants. We'll give maybe 2 more minutes for people to come back, and then we'll try and get started. And what we're going to do is break into 2 and maybe 3 groups as breakout sessions. Can you help us make sure we figure out how to designate which breakout session belongs with which group?
Absolutely.
How are the rooms identified?
However you want to identify them. They're open fields that I can type anything into.
Okay, so the 2 groups for sure are going to be LA and Cheverly, Cheverly.
Cheverly.
ERLY.
LA Cheverly.
No, LA is one group, as
Okay.
in Los Angeles, and the other group is Cheverly.
Okay.
And in the next couple of minutes, we're going to decide whether we're going to try and move ahead with the 3rd group, and we'll, I don't know, is Ethan back? There's Ethan.
Yes, I am here.
So Ethan, do you want to try and run a 3rd breakout group, or do you want to go? I mean, several people signed up and expressed an interest, or do you want to just wait and we'll do that after we get this thing started?
Well, I'm not quite sure. You know, I guess I looked at the other use cases and saw they were all fleshed out, and asthma one is not. I thought we had, you know, I was looking at our old meeting notes, and I thought we had kind of drawn up kind of an outline of what that one could look like, but I can't find any notes about that. So
yeah, so maybe if we this afternoon do the first 2, and then you and I can, and Beth can scrub our collection of notes and everything and see if we can pull the stuff together and see if both of these use cases have asthma components to it. It might be easy to make that an adjunct to one or the other and build another application from that. But I don't want to cut anybody off, but at the same time, rather than try and rush into it and sort of never catch up, maybe it makes sense to try and start that one at a later point.
yeah, that's my recommendation now. You know, maybe people could start with an asthma focus of either of those 2 other use cases that are like kind of big city and small city.
Right.
That's what I would do.
Okay.
Just crank it out that way.
Yeah, so let's.
I'm sorry, can I ask how long you want the breakout sessions to last?
I would say all but the last 10 minutes of our assigned session. They're really designed, it's really intended to be the major focus of this afternoon's activity.
Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and put, let's see. Okay, I'll take care of that. I've got 2 rooms, and then I'm allowing the participants to choose the room they want to go to. Is that correct?
Yes, that sounds good.
Okay. And just give me a holler when you want me to open the rooms.
Okay. So welcome back, all 18 of you. That's actually pretty good. I was hoping we'd get quite a few people who are actually interested in what we're doing, and it turns out we did. So thanks for coming back. Hopefully there aren't too many where people just left the window open and are now off doing something else instead. So we are going to have 2 breakout sessions this afternoon. One of those will be led by Jean, and it'll be the City of Los Angeles use case, and the other one will be led by Karen Moe, and that'll be the Cheverly use case. And so the one thing I would ask for you all to do early in this process, since this is a month-long activity, and today is really the concentrated effort of getting started, resolve how often you're going to meet. We'll see what we can come up with in the way of telecommunication support for splinter group meetings outside of the air quality cluster over the course of the next month. We'll work something out fairly quickly with that. And then the other thing is you want to discuss exactly what it is, how you're going to divide the labor up, any ideas for data that you may think you need that you think isn't in AGOL. I would encourage you to explore what data is available in ArcGIS Online, and then hopefully at the end of this session, you'll have a better sense if there's data that you have that you want to find a way to get into ArcGIS Online for you to use. Come back with that list and we'll figure out how we're going to support getting that accomplished. I think Lane has some ideas. I know I have some ideas. There's some data that we will try and access that's in Amazon S3 buckets. There's a way to do that. Hopefully what we'll end up with at the end of this is you all will be much more comfortable with the tools. You'll have a better understanding of what the idiosyncrasies are of the data. And you'll have a plan at the end, by the end of the day, for getting to the end of the month-long hackathon. So let me start with offering the opportunity for anybody to ask questions. In a minute, I'll turn it over to Lane, who will review how to get into the ArcGIS Online system and confirm that everybody who's in attendance has received an email that invites them to join the ESIP ArcGIS instance. So does anybody have any questions for me before we get started?
Mike, Karen here.
Hey,
I'm
Karen.
assuming that when we get started, that we'll be able to log into the ArcGIS and set it up as a collaborative environment. Is that right?
So Karen, and anybody else can jump in if they want to. We'll work that out as soon as, for what you want as a collaborative environment once the splinter group session starts.
Okay.
So we'll make sure somebody is in that, in your group that can go about doing that.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, Lane, do you want to talk for a few minutes about just reviewing how to get into the system?
Absolutely.
Thanks.
So if you have received an email, that's step number one. If you haven't received an email, please direct message me here. But I'm referencing it based off of the form that Mike has distributed. So fill that out if you haven't already. And I'm going to share my screen here and just show you how to get in. So the link to the organization should have come through your email, but I'm going to drop it in our chat as well. So I just dropped in the chat the link to the organization. You should be able to log in with the username and password that you have. If it's the first time you've accessed the organization, it will prompt you to set a security question and then provide a password. So both Mike and I are admins for the group if you should need anything. I've also made Yvonne an admin as well. And so you should be able to come in here and see the content. You shouldn't have anything in here yet, but this is where all your content will be stored. If you want to ensure that you have access to the notebooks that we showed on today's webinar, go ahead and try clicking the notebook tab. And if anyone has not received an email that should have, again, let me know. And if anyone is having access issues, if you have gotten an email and you're still not able to get to the organization as intended, please let me know. So once you have access, this will be kind of the interface. And Mike has set up some groups. So once we get into those breakout sessions based on kind of that key area, these are the 3 groups that Mike has created, and you'll break out into one of those as deemed appropriate by our organizers here. And so just as an example, the items that you share to this group will be visible to everyone within this group that has been identified as a member. And you'll be able to edit the content that's shared here. So just as an example, I'm going to share the story map that I created earlier today to that group as well as the organizational level. So when you create content in ArcGIS Online, you are the only one that can see it until you change the sharing level. So to be collaborative, you could share it to the organization, or you could share it to the organization and to a group, or just to a group or to the public. For the purposes for this particular demonstration, you can go and find a variety of groups that have been added to. I don't think Mike's added me to that group yet. Oh, here it is. So you can see these are the 3 groups that we have. I choose to share the story map to all 3 so that everyone in the groups can access it. And then the organizational level as well. And once I share it, then I can go into the group and I can see that item has been shared. And then you all should have access to this story map, and you should be able to edit it as well. So that's just an example of how to share content that you're creating to the group that you want to share it to. So I hope that's a helpful perspective on group level sharing. And then when you return back to your content page, you can see how that item has been distributed within the organization. Okay. All right, I see your message, Ethan, about adding you to the Chevrolet group. And looks like everybody's got the emails. And if you are able to switch groups if you'd like to just let Mike or I know, and we can help with that.
This is Ethan. Thank you. Just a quick question too. What can someone just put into words what the end product is expected out of this effort? Are we looking to create? You've shown us a whole array of tools we could use, data we could use. Are we trying to create a kind of a presentation that the use case stakeholders like city manager or whatever could use to communicate to citizens, or something else?
I'm going to defer to Mike and I can help from the technical side.
So that depends on what the group decides to do. For example, Karen's group, the Chevrolet group, may decide to do something different than the city of Los Angeles. So that's one of the first things you're going to want to try and do is decide on what is it that you're going to actually accomplish? What is the product you're going to produce in that use case? Excuse me. And then we want to hear at the end what that's going to be, so that we have it, so everybody hears it. But at the August 26th, as you guys evolve through this process, you may decide that what you tried to do was not doable, or was something, or you found some other things that you wanted to do too. And so it may turn out to be something larger in scale or different than what you plan on today. But that's the idea, is that each of these groups may end up doing something pretty different, depending on what the use case is. Does that answer your question, Ethan?
Yes, it does. I'm asking just honestly a little rhetorically, so we all have a clear understanding of what we're supposed to do.
So I believe that's as clear as the air over LA right now.
Well, that's pretty clear now. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, today's not bad. Today's not bad. You can see here. There we go.
Is that real-time data?
That is real-time data. There's probably a dark sensor around here.
It's imagery. Imagery, that's what it is.
We've got all the haze here in the mid-Atlantic.
Yeah, all our wildfire smoke data, our smoke is blowing east apparently.
Well, you guys are good at sharing, so
Maybe there's too much sharing.
Okay, I'll shut up. All right. If we don't have, what we're going to do, Yvonne, if you don't mind joining the LA group, and Lane, if you could go to the Chevrolet group, at least to start with, so that there's somebody from ESRI who can actually answer some specific questions like have come up. And then we'll go ahead. The breakout rooms are configured with LA and Chevrolet, so you pick the one you want to go to. If you find that you're not on ArcGIS Online in the right group, let me know. I kind of hesitated to put everybody in both groups, just that may be the smart thing to do in the end, so that people can move back and forth if they want to. But again, what we'd like to do is about 10 or 15 minutes before the end of this session, which is at 4 o'clock, is that right?
It's 5 o'clock Eastern.
5 o'clock Eastern.
Yes.
Then if you about 5:15 Eastern, we'd like everybody to come back together and sort of tell everybody what each group is going to do, and then we'll adjourn from there. I do want to apologize to Patty, and she's thinking, what do I have? What are you apologizing for? It's for forgetting for both meetings to mention the community standards of behavior that are at the top of the QUIQUO chart, the QUIQUO session that's there. And I'll just remind everybody that your participation assumes that you're going to conform to those community discussion standards. So I think probably by now everybody's read them at least once. They don't generally change very much. So even in the last couple of years, they've been essentially the same. So I appreciate you all adhering to the rules of engagement, even though I forgot to mention it earlier. With that, if there's no further questions, I'll let you guys go and choose your groups, and Jean and Karen can get people started on the discussion.
Okay, are we ready to open up the rooms?
Let's do it. What's the worst that can happen?
So you should see down at the bottom of your screen, breakout rooms. You should be able to choose at that point. If you do not see it, if you're in a version of Zoom that's not showing it, just give me a holler and I can place you in whichever room you'd like.
Sorry, so it should be on the bottom of like the screen, the Zoom view?
Yeah, the Zoom menu down, the toolbar down at the bottom.
Right next to where it says
Yeah,
leave and reactions. Okay.
And Mike, before we break out, could we just confirm that everyone's able to log in, just so we get a heads up?
Well,
So
I think that's going to happen in the sessions.
okay.
So if you could make sure that the ones in Chevrolet do it, and Yvonne can check the people in the city of Los Angeles, and I'll also make sure that happens.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay.
And I have these rooms closing in 2 hours from now. And then I understand you want to keep the room open a little bit past the end time of 5 o'clock.
Yes, ma'am, if that's convenient.
Sure, we can leave it open. And then I will just remind everyone the research showcase does start at 6. So if you'd like a little break between the session and the research showcase.
Okay,
Great.
Patty, so this is embarrassing since I'm in tech, but I can see the breakout rooms, but I don't know how to join the breakout room.
That's okay. That's okay. Jeannie, which one would you like to go into?
I should probably go to the LA one.
Okay.
Thank you.
There were only a few left in that meeting, so I think they're here. So thanks, everybody. I know it's been kind of a long day. I'd like to, well, I guess out of respect, I should at least make you look at me. I really appreciate all the work that you guys have put in. I've listened to both sessions, and there's a lot of really good discussion that went on. So now if we could maybe take 5 minutes each and have Jean and then Karen sort of describe what it is you think you're going to try and do by the August 26th and if you have some kind of a schedule for doing meetings. So, and anything else you want to do in 5 minutes. Jean, you're up.
I missed the part about me up first. Okay. So huge thanks to everybody participating in the LA discussion. It was really great, insightful, lots of good ideas. We've added some more data sets actually to our overall model, which is great. And then we talked about a variety of ways to be able to present information to people to make it more actionable. So part of this was talking through issues about environmental justice communities and kind of how they evolved and what the impact is about not even having data about the air quality in certain communities versus also being able to communicate information effectively in those communities across linguistic barriers, across digital divide barriers, across data understanding barriers. Where we decided to kind of start to move is towards a dashboard, which would have multiple functionality. So rather than being the place everybody goes, being a place that we would be able to have other triggering events. And so the dashboard we were planning to build off of ESRI on, and apparently I'm going to put Yvonne on the spot. So I'm going to just say that we're going to be able to do real-time data maps embedded into the ESRI story maps. And that those real-time data maps, we can put in thresholds that will have triggering events that will trigger things in other systems at the city. I'm just going to say that, and then we're going to see where we get. It's not all entirely vetted yet. We're also going to layer in some other data from organizations like Propeller Health. This is the plan that's anonymized, but shows us asthma hotspots around the city, places where people tend to use rescue inhalers because they're having trouble with something going on in that space. And so this would give us an ability to kind of let people know from their community area or maybe even on a destination layer where there are areas they might want to avoid. There's also discussion about maybe trying some animation techniques. So being able to understand throughout the day. So if I'm coming, I live in an area with a lot of trees and good air quality, but I come to downtown LA to work where it's not so great. And so if I know that during the day, the air quality is going to get to a particular level, it might be informative to me on how I prepare and plan for my day. Or if I'm sending my kid into school, then we have done a recent story map called Asthma Alley down by the port of Los Angeles and looked at the impacts around schools based on a variety of data. So this is also, and we did that with an ESRI story map. So we're kind of going to look at putting all that together. We are going to meet weekly, Mondays at 8 a.m. Pacific. 19 is going to hate me, for 45 minutes to report back on what we're doing along what will eventually later this week become subtopical areas. And I gave people lots of different roles to choose from looking at words to working with data to working with ESRI to bringing in communities spokesfolks. In a few weeks, we'll probably pull in some folks from our emergency climate mobilization office who works with our community partners in these areas. So we get a little breath of fresh air. How's that? From people who are actually suffering in the community. And then we'll also bring in some folks working on COVID health issues that may be informative of if that differs from what triggers asthma. So that's going to be UCLA Computational Medicine, our LA County Public Health folks, and a group that we did a hackathon last fall with called RMDS that does a lot of hackathons around COVID computational risk factors. And then there was also an idea of bringing in a data set from 911 and 311 that might be able to tell where people are reporting for some slightly other reason, but in doing that report infers that there's somebody who's having trouble breathing that might be related to the air quality. We're going to rock this and we're going to be so amazing. And I've already invited Chevrolet and Karen Moe to be part of our Sister Cities for Air Quality at a workshop in a couple of months that will be part of where we're open sourcing the algorithms and the code and the data behind this. What did I miss, team?
Doesn't look like you missed anything.
You covered it all.
Good job. Okay, Karen, you're up.
All right. Well, this is quite a new prospect for me. We are looking very much to develop a dashboard that will answer our policy questions. So our mayor and council and town managers will have information that will help them respond when there's a request for new development and these kinds of activities coming up. So we're going to focus on that policy. We're looking at a dashboard approach that would have modules that can be brought in depending on what aspects, questions people might be asking. And I really felt like we would be able to benefit from a lot of the public outreach kinds of things that might be coming from Jean and the LA team, because I think our interests there are very similar. So we decided to really focus on the policy kinds of questions, which deal with things like, what is the current air pollution load and what constitutes an air quality baseline? What is the corresponding health impacts of the change in air pollution? And what are these air pollution sources? Are these the kinds of things that we can track with these tools? So we expect, we looked at the problem in terms of, first, what is the pollution load? And it's got, basically, we would need to be able to tell a story to the policy. The policy, the people who are making the decisions in the state about what's happening in our neighborhood, we need to be able to tell a story about what the impact is going to be. So we want to look at the baseline of pollution levels. We maybe will look over data over maybe a 3-year period. I need to do a little research to determine what the state would consider an adequate baseline, air quality baseline before new development. But we hope to use satellite data and compare. There's some state level data from 2017 that we might be able to use about pollution levels in the county. So that's one part. And then the data sources we need to go through for that. That's going to be something we'll be examining next week in more detail. So we need to identify emission sources. So is it from a local source or is it from fires out west? Then look for data sources to data that will help us answer those questions. We want to estimate or model what the emissions from new development might be. So if the new development includes 120 buses that are going to be operating out of our neighborhood on a regular basis, on a daily basis, can we determine what the load, the pollution load of each bus might be? We think that there might be some data available for something like that. And so that we can explain that, with what that impact would be. And then the next part of it is how people will be affected by that increase in pollution load. So what are the health impacts, the increased number of hospital visits? I just heard Jean saying that there's some similarities with the data that they would be looking at. for health impacts. I think maybe we can collaborate in that area, even though California and Maryland, two different areas, but knowing that, some of this data is mandated by federal regulations, that'll help us know where to look for similar kind of data here. So that's what we're going to try and do is identify those kinds of data sources. And as we go along, identify what we think the challenges are going to be and reflect the challenges that we actually come across, thinking that, this is an area that other small towns in the United States might be able to benefit from what we learn. So the bottom line is we hope to have a dashboard with some tools for our policy assessment people in town. So Ethan, Jennifer, Benita, anything you want to add?
This is Ethan. I would just say that we would like to show kind of the path. The big thing here is to show kind of current conditions or baseline conditions and the potential impact from new industry on this town. So that means having some idea of what the new industry would provide pollution-wise, and then what the subsequent increase in health impact would be from that new pollution. The baseline alone isn't enough information for people to make decisions. It's just a point.
Right.
So we have to kind of show the health impact. And I think the hardest thing we're going to have to do is figure out how to get health data at a very fine granular level, an area of 1.3 square miles. Even how do we estimate that given the data sources we have? I'm sure there'll be other very difficult things, but that's the one that seems to be big right now.
Fortunately, we may be able to collaborate with neighboring communities so that it's not just our 1.3 miles, but it could be a bigger footprint of impact.
Great. Well, it sounds like two really great plans, some great participation, and I owe, among other things, I owe a calendar invitation for the 10 a.m. Tuesday meeting of the Chevrolet Fire Brigade, and we'll see what the schedule is after that. But that's the next meeting for Chevrolet. And Jean is going to send out the invitation for the next meeting for the LA group. And we'll see you all together again on the 26th of August. And so I'd like to thank both Jean and Karen for taking the lead in putting and helping get these things coordinated. I think this is really exciting. I think there's some really interesting opportunities. And I think in the end, that's what ESIP is really trying to do. I'd also like to thank my ESRI colleagues. I think Yvonne may be the only one that's left on the phone, or maybe Ryan is still as well. But I'll express my appreciation to Lane and Kurt later. But I'd also like to thank Patty and even though she's absent, Megan, for the work that they put in trying to put all this together and to make the technology work. I think that was critical to pulling this off. So thanks, everybody. I would like to get you somehow, I think ESRI has a feedback mechanism to assess how you think this worked as a hackathon. This is kind of the first time we've really tried this kind of an event. And if it wasn't really satisfying to you all, please make sure that you note that and what you think the problems might have been, so that we can so that ESIP can decide whether or not they want to pursue these kinds of activities in the future. So with that, I'll say thanks for your participation. You guys are a bunch of real troopers. There's 20 people still online, although I know at least 3 of them are zombies. So they're not actually there because I've asked them questions and I didn't get a response. But I do appreciate all the work you guys have put in today. Thanks very much. and have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I hope to see everybody at our research showcase starting at 6 o'clock.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Good
Good luck.
point.
Thanks again, Patty.
Sure.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.